Shadow in the night. Lena always liked to spend time alone. She rented an apartment in an old house on the outskirts of the city, gray, eternally foggy, with high windows and long corridors that seemed to have no end. But most of all, Lena loved the silence that reigned in her apartment at night. From time to time, strange things happened in her life, but she preferred not to pay attention to them. After all, what could be scary in an old house? One night, after a long day, she decided to go to bed early. As soon as Lena turned off the light and settled under the blanket, the sky outside the window was covered with clouds. Suddenly there was a loud bang, and the apartment was plunged into complete darkness. Lena habitually reached for the nightstand for a flashlight, but at that moment something strange happened. Footsteps were heard from the darkness. She froze. Her heart began to beat faster. The footsteps did not sound like footsteps from outside or from the neighbors. They were inside the apartment. And with every step they were getting closer. Lena suddenly turned on the flashlight, and the light illuminated the room. Nothing unusual. Only her bed, table, and chair. She even began to think that perhaps she had just imagined it. But then she noticed something strange. A shadow appeared on the wall opposite her. This shadow had no clear outlines. It was not human, it was not animal. It moved, but somehow strangely, as if it were made of smoke. Lena froze in horror. The shadow did not just move, it seemed to crawl along the wall, stretching and shrinking. A cold shiver ran through Lena. She got up from the bed and took a step back. But with each of her movements, the shadow became larger, spreading along the wall. Suddenly, as if on command, the shadow darted towards her. Lena grabbed the flashlight in horror, but its light could no longer penetrate this black dense matter. She felt the cold damp air, as if the shadow itself had enveloped her. "Who are you?" Lena whispered, her voice barely audible in the silence. The shadow froze. Then it began to change, as if something inside it had stirred. Lena felt her hands grow cold, and her body was frozen. And suddenly a voice came from the shadow. It was low, almost soundless, but she heard it clearly. "You shouldn't be here." Lena screamed and threw the flashlight on the floor. At that moment, the light suddenly returned, and the shadow disappeared, dissolving into thin air. The room became normal again. Lena breathed with difficulty, trying to put her thoughts in order. She glanced out the window. It was light outside. It was not the darkness of night, but day. Filled with a strange feeling, she ran out onto the stairs and ran out of the apartment in a panic. But when she went down to the first floor and turned to look at her window, her gaze froze. The shadow still remained. But now it was not on the wall, but hanging right by the window. And it was not just a shadow, it was